This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman.
This is Lauren Lester, the voice of Nightwing.
And you're listening to the DCAU Review.
Hosted by Cal and Liam.
Streaming at DCAUreview.com.
And on your favorite podcast app.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 380 of the DCAU Review. I am one of your hosts, Cal, and with me, my good friend and brother, Liam, our other host. Liam, welcome to a new month here, at least at the original time of recording. And we are moving on to, well, kind of where it all started with, depending on how you view this version of this series. But we're tackling the new Batman Adventures, which is the follow-up sequel series to Batman the Animated Series, where we all started nearly 8 years ago this month. We'll talk about that maybe later in the month as we go along here. But we have a fun one this week. It's a monumental episode, either also like a landmark episode, I dare say, although maybe not one that comes to mind as a landmark episode.
Yeah, so it's got some important moments here that we'll talk about. It's the reintroduction of one of Batman's most famous rogues into this new Batman Adventures style and storyline, and then it's also, and this is a fact which I guess we kind of knew, or it makes sense given the time frame in which this show came out. But this is also the first appearance of Nightwing in anything other than a comic book or I guess action figure. I guess he probably had some action figures by then, but this is his first appearance in media outside of comic books. So yes, our little boy wonder has all grown up and he's got a mullet now. So let's talk about it.
That's right. We'll be discussing the episode You Scratch My Back here in just a second, which originally debuted here in the United States on the Kids WB network on November the 15th, 1997. So we just passed the original air date's anniversary here, just at the original time of recording for this episode. Liam, before we get into our synopsis of this week's episode, we will, of course, get the official IMDb synopsis for this week's episode, which is brought to you by, as it is each and every week, buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review. The best way to support our little podcast here, head over to buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review. Perhaps you want to become a one-time supporter of the podcast. You know what? Maybe you want to see some exploration of Nightwing and other media discussed here on the podcast. Why don't you send us a one-time support and let us know? We know there's a ton of Nightwing fans out there, specifically gotten a lot more popular, it seems, as of late, but always been pretty popular. Regardless, you want to encourage us to review additional Nightwing material, send us a one-time supporter. You know what? Maybe you're just so thrilled that we're sticking with the new Batman Adventures here in December, and you're feeling generous, and you say, you know what? I'm going to be a full-time supporter, a monthly supporter of the podcast. You can become a monthly supporter. We have 3 different levels at which you can support the podcast. All 3 levels come with some really great perks, but our top tier super friend level comes with all of our perks, plus the very special perk of being able to ask a question and hear your answer on the air here regarding the episode that we're reviewing that week. We have a question coming up in just a little bit here that we will talk about here, but if you want to hear your answer, perhaps on a future episode, or you just want to become a one-time supporter of the podcast and you're feeling pretty generous around this time of giving, head over to buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review to support the podcast today.
Absolutely. So this is the synopsis for You Scratch My Back, which is written by Hilary J. Bader, directed by Butch Lukic. By the way, IMDb, correct your stuff. You have the wrong director listed. Music by Shirley Walker, and animation by Coco/Dong Yang. And that synopsis reads as such. Catwoman entices the estranged Nightwing to cooperate with her against a gangster over Batman's wishes.
Some
Now,
poor.
something to keep in mind there is that I had to verbally add in all the punctuation because there is none in that actual IMDb synopsis.
Wait.
So,
Okay, so I need you to wait. Hold up. Then I need you to read it exactly how it is with no punctuation, please. Take two.
okay, let me try it again. Catwoman entices the estranged Nightwing to cooperate with her against a gangster over Batman's wishes.
F minus. See us after class,
Yeah.
please. IMDb synopsis author. We have some review of general punctuation and English to review. So, with that
That's right.
aside,
We're Ricky the Hooks on phonics on this show.
oh man. Well, let's get started here, Liam. Let's talk about our own synopsis here. Perhaps we could include some punctuation of our own and perhaps do a little bit better job exploring this week's episode. We do kick things off with Nightwing appearing for the very first time. I remember we'll talk a little bit maybe once we get through our synopsis about our thoughts on seeing this episode for the very first time. But Nightwing is introduced without much fanfare. We just see him on top of a building doing his own reconnaissance, and who should show up behind him but Batman and Batgirl, who are inquiring on what he's up to.
What are you doing here?
Pre-dawn, the dockyards. Where else would a person in a mask be?
This is my gig. If I needed you, I'd have called.
Smugglers.
Gun runners. Out of South America. The only cucumbers in those crates are .30 caliber. And here come the bag boys now. If you'll excuse me.
You're the one who raised him.
Once he glides down using his fancy glider, something we'll certainly talk about in visuals, I imagine, he is able to get into a bit of a fisticuffs with the two goons, knocks him out. However, two guys manage to escape. Nightwing, Freudian slip there. Nightwing is in hot pursuit of one of the bad guys, and he's able to knock him off of the forklift that he's driving. The forklift goes flying into the water, and Nightwing is looking pretty satisfied there, kind of looking at his handiwork. And then the other guy who had escaped sneaks up behind him. He appears to be about to get the jump on Nightwing when Batgirl steps in and takes him out with a batarang. Nightwing is immediately protesting, saying that he did not need assistance from anybody, and Batgirl is quick to retort that she's pretty sure that he didn't see the guy behind him, even though Nightwing claims that he did. So at that point, the other guy that he knocked off of the forklift gets up and starts running away. Nightwing is able to pursue the guy who heads back towards where the ship was unloading. He runs into Batman, who is standing there just kind of leaning up against a bunch of boxes. He looks at Batman. Batman just looks at him, and then he takes off running. Nightwing catches up to him, passing Batman. Batman says, "He's all yours." And Nightwing shrugs and sort of pursues after the bad guy, giving a sarcastic thanks in return to Batman. So he does catch up with the bad guy, and just as it appears he's going to take down the bad guy on his own, what did you know? He stumbles upon him already tied up, and just when he's about to give quite the tongue lashing to who he assumes is Barbara, he turns around and sees who else but Catwoman.
I told you I didn't need...
A gift.
You said it.
Catwoman blows Nightwing a kiss and gives her a little commentary saying that it's a little gift to help Nightwing out. And Nightwing is still left there with the guy who is now tied up and gagged, who's mumbling something under his gag. And Nightwing just has to kind of quizzically say, yeah, you said it, as he looks after, kind of wondering what Catwoman's motive is at this point. We then cut back to where we see Nightwing living. It's Dick Grayson's home, which, Liam, is this in the sewers? Like, what is where does Dick Grayson live? He just has an entry, I guess, out through like the sewers. But it looks like, based on what they show there,
yeah, he's living in like a reservoir or something, it's like if someone had an apartment next to the LA River or something.
Right.
Like he's right next to a canal. Like he has canal front property.
There you go. Yeah, I guess he's got a penthouse there overlooking the beautiful canal. But yeah, we see inside Barbara is sort of reading him the riot act, sharing some concerns that she has, wondering why he didn't capture Catwoman at that time. Nightwing, or Dick at this point, who's out of costume, is working on his motorcycle and says that, well, he had no reason to take Catwoman down. She didn't do anything, and believes that she's perhaps turned over a new leaf, as is the rumor.
She didn't do anything except help.
Her kind of help you can do without.
Jealous?
What the heck were you doing down by the docks anyway?
Just keeping my eye on things. I've been hearing rumors about this South American smuggling ring. Word is something big is coming in, and soon. If you'll excuse me.
There's safety in numbers, you know.
You and Bruce don't have to look out for me, Barb. I'm not stupid.
No, you just act that way sometimes.
You know how to lock up.
There's room for two on that thing.
Some other time.
At this point, Nightwing comes to a stakeout overlooking a gigantic penthouse. This penthouse suite is not on the reservoir. This one is a prototypical penthouse on the top of a building. There's a nice pool in and around it. He's doing a stakeout, doing some investigating of his own. And who should arrive, Liam? But that's right, Catwoman. She just seems to be popping up wherever Nightwing is these days.
That's right. And she reintroduces herself. She's once again still a bit flirtatious as Nightwing does his reconnaissance of this penthouse. She introduces him to one of our villains of this piece here, the leader of this gang of gun smugglers, that being Enrique El Gancho, aka Ricky the Hook, and says that he was someone that's come from South America and has taken over the gun trade at the Gotham docks. And Nightwing's still a little bit suspicious of her, but she continues to sort of use her wiles and try to get on his good side. And she tells him after a little bit more flirtation that it's time to move. They head over to the penthouse and they search the Enrique El Gancho's computers, where they find what appears to be some shipping schedules. Nightwing's able to copy those on a disc, but as he turns around, a floppy disk, by the way, you see, kids, instead of thumb drives like everyone uses and has used for the last 30 years, there was a brief moment in time where the only thing we had was a tiny little disk that held, like, I don't know, half of a gigabyte of data or something on it.
And it was plastic and square
and very easily to break.
And it made your computer sound like it was constipated when you plugged it in.
But yes, but that is the chosen medium for Nightwing here as he loads up the data and prepares to leave. Wouldn't you know it, Catwoman's disappeared, and a couple of Enrique's thugs have him surrounded. At which point, Enrique enters the room and menaces the former Boy Wonder a little bit. Hooks his uniform with his hook hand. This guy has a hook for a hand. The Hook nickname is not an exaggeration. He's missing his right hand, it appears. So as he's threatening Nightwing, Catwoman springs into action from above. They're able to defeat the two thugs with guns, and Nightwing's able to overwhelm and take down El Gancho as well. Although two more guards come in with machine guns, so it's time for Nightwing and Catwoman to get while the getting's good. They escape by jumping off the balcony and down through a skylight into a pool. There's a couple, they're accosted by a few more thugs who they defeat as well. We'll certainly talk more about this sequence in visuals when we get there. But they are able to escape, and as Nightwing prepares to get back on his motorcycle, he offers Catwoman a ride. And after noting that they make a pretty good team together.
So?
You did all right.
All right. I was brilliant. We were brilliant.
Yeah, I guess we were. Need a ride?
Maybe next time.
Next time, then.
Nightwing puts his helmet on and drives away as we see a bat-eared silhouette skulking in the shadows, apparently keeping tabs on all of these occurrences. We then cut to, I guess, the next night as Selina Kyle, with a new haircut, is lounging in her apartment with quite a few of her feline friends, and all of a sudden we see the wind is blowing as her balcony door is open. Batman's there with a message for her to stay away from Nightwing.
Hey, come on, guys. Have a little patience. I'm only one woman. I thought I felt a chill.
I want you to stay away from Nightwing.
Mother birds usually know when to let their robins leave the nest. He's a big boy wonder now. A man wonder, in fact.
I don't trust you, Selina.
Of course you don't. That's why it never could have worked out between us.
Is this a private party?
Don't you men ever use the door. Don't mind him. He just wants to protect your honor.
I don't need a chaperone.
You don't know what she's capable of.
She's been straight with me. Maybe you just never gave her the chance.
If you don't trust me, Batman, trust him.
I guess I have to.
It's clear here that, like we sort of talked about with some of his other interactions with villains in the new Batman adventures, this is like going to have to be like our tally mark, I feel like, as we get deeper into TNBA. Who's he nice to and who's he like colder than ever to? And Catwoman, at least in this episode, certainly. Batman no longer seems to have much empathy or sympathy for her, simply telling her to stay away from Nightwing. And as Catwoman and him continue to have their little tiff, Nightwing enters himself and in no uncertain words tells Batman to hit the bricks, and that maybe the problem all along has been that Batman never really truly gave Selina a chance to redeem herself, and that he's going to be working with her whether Batman likes it or not. And as Batman walks out of the room and off of the balcony, and Catwoman and Nightwing discuss what they found on the shipping schedules, he realizes that there's a ship called Little Angels, which is coming into the docks that night, and notes that in all of Enrique's messages, he kept saying the Spanish word for Little Angels, Angelitos. And so he realizes that this ship must be the one that this big gun shipment is coming in on. And so as they spring into action, as Catwoman gets a little fresh with Nightwing once again, he realizes that there is a little bat tracer that Batman must have placed on Selina's whip. And so seemingly they hatch a plan as they look down from the building and see Batman and Batgirl waiting to apparently follow them to their location. Instead, Selina thinks she has another idea. She places the tracer under the collar of, I guess this is Isis. Looks a little different.
Yeah, everybody looks a little different.
But
So maybe it is. I don't know.
I don't know. She says Precious, but I assume that's just a nickname. We'll talk about it more in visuals. But yes, she puts it on her cat, who goes gallivanting across the rooftops, and Batman and Batgirl go speeding away in the Batmobile, seemingly following that tracer, thinking that it's Nightwing and Catwoman, which allows Nightwing and Catwoman to head to the docks by themselves. As they head to the docks, they slip in quietly past the other thugs who are waiting with plenty of machine guns. They find some crates marked fruit, which Nightwing cracks open, only to find that there's actually a ton of priceless antique artifacts all over the place. And as he continues to investigate, he begins to hear loud crashing sounds as Catwoman is breaking open several of the vases and other antiques. And wouldn't you know it, as she finally breaks open the last one, she finds a giant green emerald. And of course, it has to have a name that's worthy of a thief like Catwoman. It's the Cat's Eye Emerald, she tells us.
What are you doing?
Just collecting what's mine. The Cat's Eye Emerald, the pearl of Argentina.
How's that yours?
I took it fair and square. Of course, getting it out of the country was another matter. I knew about Enrique's smuggling operation.
So you slipped it into one of his shipments.
My only problem was figuring out when the shipment was coming in.
You played me for a sap.
Oh, but such a sweet sap. The money the Cat's Eye will bring is enough to take us anywhere.
You know I can't do that.
I guess not. But you can't blame a girl for trying. And I really liked you, too.
Nice way of showing it.
Pulls out the whip and knocks down a giant fishing net on top of Nightwing, as she points out that, well, believe it or not, she really liked him and was willing to cut him in. But of course, he's just too much of a goody two shoes. And she didn't realize how right she is, as right then and there, we find out that Nightwing hasn't been quite the sap that Catwoman thought she was playing him for.
That's right. You can't outsmart a former Robin. Like, I think that's what we learned here in this one is it turns out that Nightwing isn't alone. He's got backup, and who should be there to give him backup but Batman and Batgirl, who make their presence known. Batman throws a couple of batarangs to free Nightwing from the net that Catwoman knocked down in order to potentially capture him. She then realizes that perhaps Nightwing has actually double crossed her, and Nightwing admits that, yeah, indeed, that they didn't really trust her, and they just needed her to lead Batman and Nightwing and Batgirl to where the Cat's Eye Emerald was, so that they could locate it. And thankfully, Catwoman was gullible enough to think that Nightwing had fallen for her and trusted her enough to not bring backup. So, wouldn't you know? Everybody's shocked. Double, triple cross. Catwoman's upset. The Bat family's the smartest people that you could potentially ever ask to meet. And as they begin arguing, wouldn't you know, oh yeah, this is a ship full of armed guards and terrorists that are there trying to move illegal goods into Gotham. So we are quickly reminded of that as some of those thugs show up and begin shooting at our superheroes. We see Batgirl gets into the action, throwing some smoke grenades. We do see the Hook also there is attempting to take care of our Bat family. Batman, Batgirl, and Nightwing are able to escape and knock out some of the goons through the cover of smoke. And Catwoman and El Gancho are there left. And then Batman gets the favor returned to him that he gave to Nightwing at the beginning of the episode, where Nightwing decides he's going to pursue the escaping Catwoman and tells Batman, in reference to Hook, he's all yours, as he runs away. And Batman gets to follow up with his own sarcastic thanks this time. So it's Batman and Hook facing off. And this battle, as we'll talk about in visuals here shortly, is pretty brutal. So we see Batman getting sliced open with the hook, with a shot across his shoulder. Blood is drawn. Batman begins fighting. This guy is huge, by the way. He's like Rhino sized. Rhino, as in like the Scarface's henchman, not an actual although maybe bigger than an actual rhinoceros too. If we're being serious here.
The great Batman has met his match, no?
No.
And then after exchanging a few punches, Batman being on the floor, it looks like the Hook is going to finally do the Batman in. But Batman thinks quickly, grabs a fire extinguisher, puts it up. The Hook comes down and exposes or punctures the extinguisher, causing it to spray in his eyes, blinding him for a moment. The Hook stumbles backwards and trying to grab something. He unfortunately, his hook tangles up in a chain, which then triggers the release of a giant crate. This causes him to be lifted up by his hook, which rips out of its socket at that point. We're assuming that this was not attached like in his skin. Maybe it was. I don't know. His sleeve rips. We know that. So he's left there without a hook, laying on the ground, and on the opposite end, because it was a pulley system, we have this gigantic heavy crate of artifacts that comes speeding towards him like Wile E. Coyote, and he can only stand there and freeze as it absolutely decimates him. And Batman walks over, looking to double check to see what has happened with Hook, and believe it or not, he's still alive. He throws the crate off, and it looks like Batman's going to have to gear up for a second round, but the Hook doesn't actually stand up. He just makes eye contact with Batman before falling backwards, fainting in exhaustion. So Batman is able to defeat the Hook. Meanwhile, outside, we have Nightwing in hot pursuit of Catwoman, who makes it to the edge of the dock, gets on a speedboat, and takes out. And here's where we see Nightwing really swing into action here. He jumps off the dock and is able to use his gliding wings to fly out into the harbor after her in hot pursuit. She pulls out a flare gun and shoots it at him. He's able to dodge it and eventually land and knock her off of the boat. Well, knock her off of the wheel of the boat. They're speeding towards another ship that has a gigantic propeller that unfortunately they are doomed if they are not able to escape this boat. So thinking quickly, Nightwing is able to grab the unconscious Catwoman, jumps off the boat, and just before the speedboat crashes into the giant propeller, exploding. And then we see Nightwing and Catwoman floating on a piece of wood at the end, proving that Jack could have survived the Titanic crash after all. Take that, person who decided that Jack couldn't. No, just kidding. Catwoman and Nightwing are there on the floating on the boat, and Batgirl arrives in the Batboat just in time to pick them up. Nightwing is smiling and seemingly a little bit warmer towards Batgirl, saying that, hey, he's always open to help, kind of poking fun at his resistance and reluctance to accept help from Batman and Batgirl before.
You all right?
You know me. Always happy to have a little help.
And that is the end of our episode. All right, Liam. Um, I really enjoyed this episode. I had not seen this in quite some time. I remember us watching this a lot. I don't know if we had this. I think we may have recorded this off of Kids WB or something like that at one point because I do remember seeing it a lot. Or maybe our grandfather taped it off of reruns or something like that on Cartoon Network. But I do remember seeing it quite a bit. But I feel like this episode still holds up. It's a really fascinating way to reintroduce Nightwing into the series. Obviously, we have old wounds that's still coming up that we had not aired yet, and we have not reviewed yet because it had not aired yet. So
Mhm.
it's interesting that this is the first introduction that you get. You don't really get the backstory. So far, the only thing that we have is in Sins of the Father, we have Dick walking in at the end. We don't really have an explanation for why Dick is not Robin anymore. And if you didn't read the Lost Years comic book series, you are kind of like, well, I don't know
Mhm.
why this is. So now this is our first introduction to who Dick Grayson has become. He's Nightwing, and he's kind of a jerk to Batman. He and Batman are clearly very reserved and kind of cold towards each other. He's a big jerk to Barbara, it seems, for almost no reason. So it is a very different. It's a very different look at this character who was very much used as light and brevity and comedic relief and quips in Batman the Animated Series. He's definitely taken a darker turn here. And the idea that this character is much more mature, he's flirting with one of Batman's many love interests for the majority of the episode. And the idea that maybe he could be swayed and the wool pulled over his eyes by somebody that quite frankly has a history of pulling the wool over Batman's eyes at times. And then you have this dynamic of Batman trying to be the protective father of, you don't want to get involved with her. She's no good, stay away from her. And then going to Catwoman and her having this heart to heart with saying like, hey, like you got to let your kids grow up sometime. I just really enjoy the dynamic
Mhm.
between all of the characters. I think I do like the double twist at the end too. That's one of those things that once it's kind of spoiled, it's not as fresh. But I think it is pretty interesting that the double twist of who's actually working who here is kind of a good wrinkle to the story as opposed to Nightwing just being surprised that he gets double crossed. It makes our hero not look like a complete idiot in the end. It's like, oh, he was just playing the idiot in order to make the villain look like the idiot, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the most fun part of the episode for me, and it's almost the part that I forgot about. Like I remember the general it's funny, I remembered a lot of specific lines of this episode. Like you said, we watched it a ton when we were younger, and then I probably had watched this a couple times in the last 10 years or so, probably since whenever the HD version of the show came out. This might have been one of the episodes that I popped on just to see how it looked. So I've seen this episode enough to kind of know it, but I always kind of forget the sort of the latter half twist, because it does feel like it's set up where it's just all about Dick being this sort of stubborn, acting out against his father figure character, and being to the point where he's being sort of dangerously irresponsible, both with Catwoman and by not letting Bruce and Barbara help him with the Algancho case as well. And like he's got to sort of prove it all on his own, that he can do it all on his own. So the fact that it kind of turns out that at some point maybe he realized in between issues with Catwoman that maybe he needed to loop Bruce and Barbara in, and they concoct this sort of plan together. I think is a really fun little twist to the episode, where it shows like, yeah, there is problems. Like you said, we'll get to Old Wounds and Animal Act and some of the other episodes that touch on, Nightwing and Batman's relationship in this new TNBA era. But it's he's not an idiot, which I feel like is an important thing to point out. Like he still knows how to strategize, and he still knows at the end of the day that he and Batman are fighting towards the same goals. So I think that's kind of a fun element to it, where you can play with that tension. Like you said, to this point in the series, we don't really know what went on between him and Barbara or him and Bruce, but we know it was damaging enough. There's those lines in Sins of the Father that Alfred drops about how he never listened to Bruce was never one to listen to other people's opinions, and how it used to make Master Dick furious. But that's really all we know, and obviously the tension that we saw in the original series. So it's interesting how they play with that to kind of create this scenario that makes you, the viewer, you're kind of taken on the ride with them, thinking, oh my gosh, he's so wrongheaded, he's so defiant towards his old mentor that he's going to walk right into a trap, when in reality he's the one that set this trap, which I think is a great twist to the episode. So it creates a more interesting three-dimensional character, I think, rather than if he was just so stubborn and hot-headed that he fully got captured, and then Batman and Batgirl have to show up to pull his butt out of the fire. You could definitely do that story, but I think it's more interesting to have it be where this tension is definitely still there between all these characters, but they are able to put it aside to work together at the end. Is fun, and how they all kind of split off to handle the goons and Ricky the Hook, as while Nightwing kind of gets to go out on his own ultimately to stop Catwoman at the end.
Yeah, I think it's just a fun episode. I think it's kind of a refreshing introduction for a character too, because I I think I think in a perfect world you do old wounds before you do this stuff, but it kind of, looking back at it now, it does kind of work, because it does leave you kind of asking these questions of, what happened to these guys? And I think as a kid when we were watching this, we were fortunate enough to have been able to read the Lost Years comic books and kind of accepted that as canon, not knowing that some of that Batman Adventure stuff, how canon worked necessarily, I feel like at that age. But regardless, I think we both had an idea of how that happened, and we're getting into this and we're like, well, why are we acting like that other stuff didn't happen? And it's a little confusing. But I think in retrospect here, doing it this way, whether it was intended or not, I don't know whether or not the episodes airing out of order like this was intended. But I think the idea that you just kind of you pull little threads here and there, and you kind of introduce a little bit of, all right, this is who Nightwing is now, and he and Bruce have this kind of still frayed relationship, and we don't know what happened because we don't have we're missing some of the puzzle pieces here. We definitely don't know what happened between him and Barbara that has led him to kind of be this really mean, cold person towards her also. So I think once we get to Old Wounds in a couple, well, it won't be this month, but the next time that we do the new Batman Adventures, it'll be interesting to see, whether or not we look at this and say, yeah, I think that it works, or maybe we decide we were right as kids and like, maybe they should have put Old Wounds first. So, but yeah, I really enjoyed this. I think the dynamic between bringing in Catwoman, who has this romantic relationship with Batman, also creates this extra layer of tension between our characters here, because Batman feels like he has to be the older brother, or the parent in this case, that is telling his kid like, hey, I've been down this road before and you can't trust her, like she's not trustworthy. I think that was the last time that we saw her interact with Batman, the Scarface episode with Catwoman.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it, yeah. So we know what she did in that episode, and how he had kind of given her hope that she would turn over a new leaf, and ultimately was not. She ends up destroying this tiger in order to escape and all that stuff, and kind of pulling a fast one, threatening Arnold Wesker's life. Well, lots of stuff in that episode that she kind of disappointed Batman with. And then she of course was in Batgirl Returns also, but Batman didn't appear in that episode except in the dream sequence. So yeah, I think the dynamic though between this, her seemingly moving on from him not being nice to her anymore, is interesting. I think you brought that up when we were kind of talking about our synopsis, that Batman who he chooses to have sort of empathy or sympathy for as he's kind of getting towards this older age here is very interesting. What led him to suddenly all of a sudden, was it that last interaction in that episode where he's like, all right, I've given her too many chances at this point and she's not interested. Like she's played me like a fiddle a couple too many times. Or was there something that we missed in between the end of Batman the Animated Series and the new Batman Adventures? Regardless, it seems like he doesn't seem to have much time or interest in playing her game, so to speak, here, and is a little bit perturbed that she would try and move on to Nightwing. Do you think there's a hint of jealousy there, maybe too, or is this completely just a protective parent moment?
Yeah, and that is an interesting element to it because yeah, it does feel like Selena even sort of alludes to their history and the fact that he could never trust her, being why it couldn't have worked out between them. And then almost in the same breath, it feels like she's definitely doing it, one because she wants this emerald, and two because it does feel like she's trying to get Batman's attention or hurt him in some way, and is obviously willing to use. And obviously she's always shown her ability to to kind of play the next guy like a fiddle. And so it's sort of a feeling, I think, of her being able to metaphorically and perhaps literally get her claws into a new sort of hero type who thinks they can redeem her, basically trying to run back the same playbook on her end. And then yeah, I think on Batman's end, it is that, like, that he's been hurt by her before, and there is this like deep mistrust, and maybe there is like this sort of territorial thing of like, you're not going to do to him what you did to me type of energy to that conversation. Because that's, and we'll certainly talk about that in voice acting later, that is a cold scene between them. Like they are really, like, really callous to each other, even in that brief interaction they have before Nightwing comes in. So it does seem like there's more to it than just her being a thief or a criminal. Like, it does seem like there's some chapter we didn't see, and like we said, maybe we'll revisit that tie-in comic someday and see how we feel that plays as an in-between quel for Catwoman in between the two series. But yeah, I think that definitely gives it another element too, is that because it's this character who has this romantic history with Batman, now playing after his surrogate son, that's messed up, man, on every account. And yeah, it does feel like she's doing it to get under his skin, and based on that conversation, it feels like it's working. It feels like it is getting under his skin.
Yeah, great job. Success. Which also feels like a very like ex-girlfriend type of thing to do. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I want your attention back, or I'm hurt and I'm gonna hurt you. So this is how I'm going to get with like somebody that's extremely close to you, but also play very innocent and just blame you for being jealous, not because you have any reason to distrust me or something like that. So yeah, as I said, I really liked this episode. I think the late Miss Bader and Butch Lukic both did a really great job tag teaming this between the writer and directing. I think it's really strong. It's really fun, and not even having, yes, Catwoman is she is the villain, I guess, but she's not the main antagonist for the majority of
Mm-mm.
it. She's like the sneaky antagonist for some of it. More or less the tension that's created between Bruce and Dick. But we also have this other guy, Ricky the Hook that we talked about here. Who makes his one and only appearance here. Just kind of cool, big buff dude with the hook for a hand. Like, striking visuals that we'll talk about here in a second. But yeah, I like that there's this other kind of storyline there where they're kind of racing to stop these guns, and what they're not realizing, I guess, at the time, is these artifacts from being imported to Gotham and sold for ill-gotten gains. So I really like the episode. As I said, I went with a really strong 9 out of 10 for my score. What about you?
Oh, nice. So, yeah, I went just 1 point lower, 8 out of 10. I think it's fun. Like I said, I wish maybe there was a little bit more time for more, maybe one more scene of like interpersonal dynamics between Batman and Nightwing, or Nightwing and Batgirl, just to maybe hit that part of the dramatic, the soap opera elements of this episode a little bit harder, but a lot of fun action. And like we said, I think it's a credit to Miss Bader as a writer, and to Mr. Lukic as a director, the way that they sort of let you think the plot is a lot simpler, and then sort of let it unfold, and then take you on give you the twist at the end, the double twist, really. One, that Catwoman is, of course, double crossing Nightwing, and then the reveal that Nightwing was really one step ahead of her, and I think is a great gag. And like I said, it allows you to still play on those tensions between Batman and Nightwing, which are very real and will continue in the series without making anybody involved a dummy. So I think they did a great job.
All right, Glenn, let's move on to our next category of the day, which is going to be animation and visuals. And as you mentioned at the top, Coco Dong Yang responsible for our animation, with direction by Mr. Butch Lukic, as we've already mentioned. Yeah, this one is interesting. I think from the start, let's talk here. Let's talk about the Nightwing design, shall we? This is our first opportunity to talk about the Nightwing look here for the original New Batman Adventures look. He does stay this way until Batman and Harley Quinn. Obviously, is a different look that we get for Nightwing, but this is interesting, because I think what's cool about this design is, I think, like so many things in the DCAU, and Bruce Timm and the people obviously that worked on this show, the other artists that worked on the show, that worked on character designs, some of the elements I feel like of Nightwing in this show have influenced ultimately how Nightwing looks in the present day. It's interesting. Specifically, I feel like the logo, the actual bird logo, has been adapted and adopted a couple of different times and used in different comic books since the show. But he it's interesting. I think maybe people think of Nightwing. You might think of him with the disco collar from his original introduction in the '80s. Maybe you think of the Nightfall look, where he kind of had a more pared down costume with that big yellow. I guess that was a collar also, but it's just like a flat collar at that point. And the single ponytail, and then he eventually gets his hair cut, and he's kind of rocking the like Karen do for a little bit there. And now ultimately he's got the short hair. But this is full blown mulleted Nightwing that is like, man, I know the mullet has come back into style in the year 2025, or at least it was in the last couple of years. Mullets were kind of ironically in again, but man, this thing is a piece of beauty. That guy can just stand there, and I think we have hashtag mullet movement for this character design, because when he's there standing on the edge of a building, that hair gets flowing. You just want to stop. You could hear an '80s ballad playing behind it or something with his head shaking. It's a thing of beauty.
Absolutely, yeah. It's fun to see him in action. They do some cool things. I think it is such a simplified design, even from what the Nightwing look in the comics was, which obviously this is based on at the time of it. It just kind of wrapping around the emblem, just kind of wrapping around his chest. They do give him the kind of the bird head on the chest, but nothing on the sleeves or the boots. So it's almost like he's wearing like I think it plays into, he's a gymnast, so he wears like a very simple, sleek, like spandex outfit. He's not looking necessarily but he has that big bright blue, because he's a bit of a peacock, so he stands out, even though he's in the darker color scheme than he used to be. So I love the look of Nightwing in there. The underarm wings are definitely an innovation from this show, which now feature in the comics pretty prominently. The glider is definitely something from this show as well, with which is super cool. I always remember thinking that was one of the coolest.
That feels You think that's inspired by like the Spider-Man
Hmm.
webbing under the arms from that look? I don't know if that was a Ditko introduction or who would have been responsible for the Spider-Man webbing, but obviously multiple Spider family. I don't know
Hmm.
if Spider-Woman is part of is called Spider Family, but I know Spider-Man 2099 also has it, and Spider-Woman also has it, but. I think it was also used maybe in one of the Spider-Man movies, maybe in Homecoming. He
Yeah,
had,
yeah, he has the web wings, as they're called, I believe. Yeah.
but yeah, that felt very. It's interesting because it feels very much a part of this character, but also draws from some really neat inspiration. Obviously, our showrunners and the people that were involved in this are not just DC fans; they're comic book fans. So a
Hmm.
guy who literally like he goes from being a bird Robin to whatever a Nightwing is now actually gets to fly, and he's one of our first, or he's our first non-powered flight guy. I feel like in the new Batman Adventures or slash Batman the Animated Series, he actually gets to fly, and it kind of. It's kind of a cheat, I feel like, because it doesn't make quite a whole lot of sense. But it's like a base jumper, you know. He's got the wings
Hmm.
under his arm, and you can just imagine that the wind's blowing real fast. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, he's very aerodynamic. I don't know. The mullet somehow keeps him in the air longer. He doesn't need the big clunky hang glider that Batman used to float around on in the original animated series, and he doesn't get his own jetpack like Batman has either. So, but yeah, no, I love the look of that. The final sequence when he's chasing Catwoman on the boat. They kind of put this, like, I guess the idea is that it's foggy out, so the emblem has almost this like shiny glowing effect to it. I would love to know how they kind of pulled that off, because it does create this really sort of really cool. It really cuts through the sort of drab background. So the and Catwoman, I think it goes great juxtaposed with Catwoman, who's just this stark black and literal black and white character,
Yeah.
and to have the big shiny blue emblem during that sequence is a lot of fun. So yeah, just design wise, and then I think if we you apologies if you already mentioned this, but yes, as we get this sequence, which we could talk about in its own right, where Nightwing goes speeding away on his motorcycle through his reservoir tunnel that's in his living room, as you mentioned, which is awesome, and we could talk about that in a second. But then we cut to him running across a roof, and he stands on that ledge, as you mentioned, and he stands up straight, and that's the last shot of the Batman the Animated Series opening, but with Nightwing.
Oh
It's
yeah,
the
yeah.
red sky, the big moon behind him, and him standing sort of straight and staring off into the night sky. It's like just for a second he hits the pose, and then drops back down, which I thought was a really neat little visual nod to him kind of being on his own now, even as he's still following in his mentor's footsteps. I thought that was a great gag. But yeah, now with that out of the way, let's talk about his living room sewer tunnel.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's very pared down. It looks like he just moved in. It's like one of those memes where it's like women are so angry that guys want to live so simply. It's like a mattress and a television and and that's it, like in a chair and that's it. Like I feel like that's probably what is there. It's like a
Mhm.
motorcycle, a table, and he's probably got a bed someplace. There's not much, hasn't done much decorating. Although there are these really interesting, what appear to be like Japanese swords, and they like he's got this moving door that has some Japanese lettering on it, or some
Mhm.
Japanese
Big
designs on it.
dragon.
A big dragon on it, which I thought was interesting, because, and then I sort of noticed something later on, and that is that it appears that our Nightwing, our Dick Grayson, his fighting style has adapted a little bit. I was reminded of a conversation that we've had several times with director of Batman the Animated Series, Kevin Altieri. I think specifically he mentioned it on most recently on the Bane episode that we reviewed with him, which you can hear in the archives at DCAUreview.com or on your favorite podcast app. And on that, he mentioned how they intentionally made Robin this dirty fighter. You know, he's hitting below the belt. He's doing,
Mhm.
he's hitting guys from behind. He's throwing things at people. He's not the polished hand-to-hand combatant that Batman is. He's just sort of like a brawler, a dirty fighter, so to speak. And here in this episode, we see these Japanese samurai swords. We see the Japanese dragon on the door, and then later on, I noted in that first scene where he's sort of ambushed after getting the information about the shipping, and these thugs are in there trying to take him down. He's actually fighting in a style that is very reminiscent of like a Bruce Lee Japanese film style, a martial arts, karate, whatever, Eastern influenced fighting style that
Mm-hmm.
would lead me to believe, and I have not read the Lost Years comics in years, so forgive me. I don't remember there being a specific scene. I remember where he's in South America, but I don't remember there's a specific scene if he goes over to the Far East to get training. But it appears that our boy Wonder has grown up and his fighting style has also evolved to be a little bit more classic when it comes to combat style here, which I really enjoyed. It's kind of, again, feeds more into the story that this is not the same guy that we saw, even though Robin was in his mid to late teens and maybe early 20s going to Gotham University the last time we saw him. He's spent some time away from Gotham, clearly, and he's learned some things. Maybe that includes a new fighting style or two.
Yeah, I like that. I think to your point, like he's still not. I mean, Batman like backhands a guy and he goes flying into another guy in this episode during that final fight. So
I
he's
thought
not the
that
powerhouse.
the Batman pimp slap. Yes.
Yes, 100%. His pimp hand is strong. Maybe Superman was filling in for him under the mask in this episode too. We didn't know about it, but yeah, no, but like they point out just how sort of powerful and how sort of Batman's very much a one and done, hit you once and you're not getting up type of guy in this series, it feels like. And so yeah, I like the idea that, yes, to your point, it's not dirty, it's not the hitting below the belt type of moves, but he is still using sort of leverage, and he's kind of throwing his opponent and using his opponent's weight against him, but in a more sort of professional technique, in a way that clearly has more technique to it in his fighting style, as opposed to where he was back in the old Robin days. So that's a great insight to you as to maybe some of the other adventures Dick had while he was away from Gotham that taught him how to fight. Still, again, which I like, because again, he isn't this big beefy powerhouse like Batman is, but he can still, like you said, fight in a more direct and more traditional way, and is maybe a little less of a dirty fighter, as friend of the show Kevin Altieri like to call him. So yeah, that's a great point as well, as that aspect of Nightwing as well. While he's still very much like that, he still has that daredevil streak into him where he jumps off a roof and he'll figure out how to not die on the way down. It feels like he still has that flying Grayson in him very much. So it's interesting how they kind of balance that, where he is still this sort of free spirited character, even though he's clearly learned some lessons and is a different man than he was when we last saw him.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. A couple of other minor notes here that I liked as far as visuals are concerned. Speaking of Daredevil Robin, when he and Catwoman jump off the roof to land into the pool, I always thought that scene was really great. The way that they cut into them landing in the pool, and then you start to see the shots coming through the water from above them. Them hiding under the diving board is great, and then the ensuing fight that happens between them and the thugs that show up in the room with gym equipment is great. Nightwing, speaking of fighting dirty, this is where he sort of reverted back to his old ways. He hurls a medicine ball at a guy's head, knocks him out, which is great. There's another guy who clearly he skipped arm day for quite a while because he can't do his reps. It's too much for him as a barbell collapses on him. Catwoman gets to use the rings to swing in. I thought that was a neat little bit there, that them using the gym as a setting for them to use some of those things as weapons. I thought was fun. I also enjoyed, obviously the way that Nightwing moves, as I already talked about, but certainly when he's running and jumping and the transition into the flight sequences are really fun. We'd be remiss not to mention I think we kind of talked about it when we started reviewing this with Holiday Nights, with some of the violence that seemed to be able to be shown on television.
Mhm.
We see Batman bleed, I think, in that episode also, and this episode we got two instances of blood. Batman gets his arm sliced, and then we get Ricky the Hook at the end. He gets some blood dripping from his mouth after he's had that gigantic crate dropped on his head. So more blood, lots more fists to the face, to the jaw, to the stomach. We're in a new world here in the kids WB era where we can show a little bit more violence and get away with it without having to do as many cutaways or flashbangs or things that would generally hide that violence before. So it's kind of refreshing to see. I will say that the ripping off of Ricky the Hook's hand is it feels like one of those things that we talk about where they were like, well, it's not his real hand. Like we have an excuse here that it was just kind of attached to his arm, so we can rip it off with and make it seem more violent than it actually is, and then give him a little bit of a rip sleeve to kind of give it that idea that maybe it was ripping out of his actual flesh. So pretty interesting. I really enjoyed that. One last question, Liam. I think we'll just touch on it briefly because this is the first time we're getting this character here. What about the Catwoman look? You mentioned it. She's literally this. She went from that gray and black suit with kind of like the knee-high boots and the yellow belt. Now she's pretty much just completely all in black. These no longer be able to see her irises or her eyes. She's got just the giant white slits for her eyes. Her skin also when she puts on her costume. This is kind of like the I feel like the live action Batman movies for every movie up until the Pattinson movie, which is they don't explain why when he puts the cowl on, he's got the black makeup around his eyes, and then when he takes it off, it's gone. I don't know how, or it doesn't. I don't understand how Selena sitting in her apartment, has normal Caucasian skin tone, and then when she puts on her costume, suddenly her skin looks like the Joker. That I never understood, and is a little bit quizzical to me. I think there were some comics where they went with the more like traditional skin pigmentation versus the white skin, but I don't think it's ever explained as to why she's got like the Poison Ivy style, Joker style, Harley Quinn style skin in the show.
Yeah, that actually plays into our question that our follower Zach asked us this week, which I will traditionally we're going to break tradition this week since we're already talking about it. We'll talk about it here since his question was specifically about this. So we'll get Zach's question here. And if you'd like to ask a question, we'll remind you that you can head to buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review. And if you support us as a monthly supporter, you'll get the option to ask a question just like Zach did. And this week he asks, why do you think Catwoman's chin and mouth are white when she's in costume? Do you think it's supposed to be some kind of white-mouthed black cat representation? Thank you very much, Zach, for the question. Yeah, I that's maybe it is. It's interesting because my first thought is, well, they kind of reversed what that obviously a lot of the characters we talked about, some of the designs needing to be closer to the then current Tim Burton, Michael Keaton movies, which is why the Penguin looks like he does in the original animated series. And then obviously by the time the new Batman Adventures had started, they no longer needed that. So they went with a more traditional Penguin design. Whereas it kind of feels almost the reverse here, even though she doesn't have like the stitches and the weird parts of the Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman suit, but it does feel like they went with like the simpler, sleeker, all black look just to kind of make her a little like skulkier and a little bit more, I don't know, does she feel more villainous because you can't see her eyes and she has this like pale skin? I hadn't thought of it being like a black cat specifically, but I don't know if the idea is that but it does raise an interesting question because I thought about that. It's like, is she painting just the bottom half of her face? Because we know Harley like paints her face. I think we see her do that in a couple episodes, and it seems like Joker and Ivy's skins are just that color naturally. So that's a good question by you and by Zach here. I genuinely couldn't get a read on it. Like, yeah, that makes as much sense as anything. But yeah, I thought maybe I thought, is it like a Cheshire cat thing? But
Mhm.
that then wouldn't like her whole face be blacked out at that point, and you could just see like her mouth, like she'd have more of a full face mask, a la like a Batman Beyond, if that's what they were going for. So yeah, that is a good question why they went with the white bottom half of the face. Is it supposed to be like some sort of white grease paint, or is it like a sleeve or something over the bottom half of the mask that she puts on, like some kind of filter or something that she wears? That's a really good question. It's an odd fashion choice from such a fashionable lady as we saw in the original animated series.
Yeah, I don't, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. She just puts on a lot of powder, like that white powder that women wear for makeup, just so much of it on her face. She's just caking it on. I don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I guess the only thing that I could say is that it kind of looks better. She's sort of monochromatic at that point, but with the giant white eyes. I think if you do more of a traditional Caucasian skin color at that point, it's gonna look a little odd, especially because you can't see her eyes. I don't love this. I'm gonna not gonna lie. I think this does not look great. I don't love this compared to our previous Catwoman. I also feel like she was kind of shaped like a traditional fashion model, kind of like long legs, shorter torso, pretty long arms. She looked pretty tall, like, she kind of looked tall and lanky, and now she kind of has the same diminutive look that everybody else has. All the other females have in the new Batman Adventures, the Bruce Timm pinup style. So I don't like this compared to what we had in Batman the Animated Series. So as far as an explanation for it, I think anybody's guess. I'm just gonna go with, yeah, puts on a lot of foundation, and it's so much that it, that it just lightens her skin up. That's as good as an explanation as anything else, I guess.
Yeah, it'd make more sense if she had like a secret identity, but I think everybody knows she's been to jail like in the original series. Like everyone knows that she's Catwoman under the mask.
Right.
So unless there was like meant to be like, and it's not like they pretend it's somebody else or anything. So yeah, it seems like it's an odd design choice. Maybe they just thought the simple two-tone coloration was interesting, but yeah, because I'll be honest, I never loved the original BTOS Catwoman design either, but comparatively, I think I do like that one better than this. And at least like the gray and the black being that she sort of represented this temptation and this possible foil for Batman. It made sense that they had sort of the gray and black and yellow sort of matching color schemes on their outfits, as opposed to now where she's just all in this sleek black suit. Maybe it's because now she's supposed to be more of a foil for Nightwing, but obviously they don't interact another time. It's not like this sets up some, Nightwing Catwoman rivalry for the rest of the song. Yeah, I don't know. It just stands out as it's a little bit blah. It's a little bit nothing. I feel like is it's unfortunate without any kind of additional elements to it. It's just the all black suit with the I like the white eyes. I don't mind her having the white eyes on the suit as opposed to having the kind of the big open Batgirl style holes in her face mask for her eyes. I don't mind the white eyes, but yeah, otherwise it's pretty unremarkable as far as redesigns go.
Yep. And thanks again to Zach for asking that question. We appreciate it. Zach, thanks for being a monthly supporter of the podcast. Make sure you head over to buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review if you would like to become a monthly supporter for a chance to hear your own question answered right here on the show. Liam, I will give my final score here for animation and visuals. And unfortunately, Catwoman's design took me down a peg here just by one, but I still gave it a really remarkably high score here. I think based on the Nightwing design, the way that he moves, the flight sequences, the fight sequences, A lot of the fun that you have at the beginning, the end of the episode. I feel like the culmination of him flying out, knocking Catwoman off the boat, them being saved at the end from Batgirl there is great. The fight sequence between Ricky the Hook and Batman is outstanding. All of that, I ended up giving animation and visuals a 9 out of 10. What about you?
Nice. And yeah, I'm just 1 point lower again at 8 out of 10. I think it's strong. And yeah, I said I like the final sequence. So much of this is set against the water, and as I mentioned, that sort of fog effect that they put
Okay.
on there that lets the some of the brighter colors sort of stand out, the red, the and the dark red sky. This is one of the first episodes I feel like a lot of it is set on rooftops as well, with Nightwing and Catwoman kind of get gallivanting across the rooftops with that blood red sky that became the trademark of Gotham going forward in the DCAU once the NBA started. I think it looks great. So yeah, big thumbs up to the visuals this week.
All right, Liam, let's move on to our next category, which is animate. All right, Liam, let's move on to our next category, which is music. Once again, this week, the late, great Shirley Walker responsible for our composition. And really, I think our main event here to talk about is pretty obvious here with our Nightwing theme. As far as the rest of the episode is concerned, you certainly have some music that fills in spots to create some tension, but I feel like it is a crime against humanity that we do not have this episode, let alone the rest of this series, but this episode in particular released the soundtrack to listen to these themes in isolation. This Nightwing theme is so dang good and so
Mhm.
much of an earworm. I can remember us watching this episode for the very first time as kids and immediately just being enthralled by this theme. It is just as
Mhm.
good to me, I think, as the Batman theme. It's as good as the Superman theme. It is good as many of the iconic pieces that Miss Walker wrote for the individual Batman the animated series episodes, the
Mhm.
the memorable pieces there. It is so good. It screams adventure. It screams excitement. You know who's appearing on the screen when this character shows up. It is a phenomenal piece of music, and it is a crime against humanity that we don't have the ability to listen to this in isolation. But thank God that there are multiple scenes in this where it's basically just the music and some sound effects that play over it as our Nightwing soars through the air to his theme song. Because wow, what an incredible composition.
Yeah, that's most of my music notes this week are about the Nightwing theme for good reason, because you're absolutely right. It's so iconic immediately. It's every time it comes in on the show, it's got this real like it's like this he's swashbuckling, but it almost sounds like a theme for a cowboy as well. Like maybe it's
Mhm.
just the idea of like he's riding alone now, so he's out on so they play it. And again, much like the Batman themes or some of these other character themes that we talk about, you play it in different keys, you play it at different tempos throughout the episode. It kind of bookends the episode because it starts playing when he kind of takes flight at the start, to take down the thugs on the dock, and then at the end, as he's floating in the water, as Batgirl shows up to pull him out of the water, it sort of plays in a more triumphant way as it wraps up. So yeah, it's great. The whole sequence, as mentioned, when he hops on the motorcycle, and we kind of follow him through the city, and we get the full theme playing through that sequence is awesome as well. So just based off of the Nightwing theme alone, I do think there's some other nice moments with how they play with when Catwoman appears, as they sort of match her movements. I think is sort of some of the strings, and it sounds like maybe a flute or something that they're using to kind of imitate how kind of flighty and gracefully she moves in certain sequences as well. I like that as well, but I'll be honest, that's really a minor thing I came up with on the fly. All my notes were basically about the Nightwing theme, and based on the Nightwing theme alone, it's a 10 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I don't know how you can watch this episode and listen to that theme and not just be enamored with what an incredible record of hits that Miss Walker was able to
Unreal.
compose. Are you kidding me? Like the Rolodex of things that she's able to point to, the litany of items on her resume of like, yep, compose this, compose that, compose this, compose that. Like the instantly memorable themes. And I mentioned us being enthralled with this as kids, and I can tell you the impact that the music of this show, especially the themes that she wrote, I think we've talked about it several times that we've started here, but it was so important to the character and left such an impression on us in watching these that when you played with your action figures, when I played with my action figures, you sang the theme when that character would come in. Like that was a regular
Absolutely.
part of what we did. Like it was an identity to the character, and it's amazing to me. Like I said, I can remember how instantly we were like, "Oh, that's the Nightwing theme," and you can remember it as a kid. Like it was so impactful. It's like I'm 9 years old, and I can tell you that like when I had my Nightwing figure, I could sing the song. It's that it's that important. It's not having this readily available on demand whenever we wanted to either. It was like from watching this once or twice on a Saturday morning that it just stuck with us. So yeah, tens across the board for this. What an incredible piece. I was so looking forward to this episode so that we could finally talk about the Nightwing theme. It's a thing of beauty, and it plays in all the right parts for this. As I said, that final sequence with him taking off, following the boat, and him just kind of opening his arms up and the wings spread and he starts gliding in. Catwoman shoots the flare at him and he dodges it and soars towards the boat. Ugh, just got chills thinking about it. It's instantly memorable. So if you don't know what we're talking about, I don't know how, but check out some clips on YouTube, or I'm sure there's been some clips that have played that have kind of had it here on the episode. But yeah, 10 out of 10, unsurprisingly from both of us there, Liam, for another home run from maybe the best to ever do it for cartoons. All right, Liam, well, that will bring us to our final category of the day, which is going to be our voice acting. Our voice cast is not very large this week, from what I saw here. A small but mighty cast of voice actors and actresses make up this week's voice cast. So let's go ahead and discuss it.
Absolutely. So we'll shout out three of our unnamed gun runners who frequently I think would do background voices or thug number one voices, but that's Steve McGowan, Michael Donovan, and Joe Lala. All there to be beaten up. And if I didn't mention it, one of the thugs looks like Guillermo. I don't know his last name, but Jimmy Kimmel's sidekick. So I just want to make
Guillermo, the
that.
security guard. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. One of his guys. He's like a husky, appears to be a Latino man. And with that sort of mustache, so I was like, "Oh, Guillermo's in this episode. That's fun." But yes, otherwise we have our first villain. We have Sal Lopez as Enrique El Gancho, aka Ricky the Hook. You might know Mr. Lopez from things like Full Metal Jacket, or more recently he was in the F1 movie that Brad Pitt starred in over this past year. Yeah, he's good. He's menacing. He's just got this real kind of raspy quality to his voice, and you do get the sense pretty much right away. It's a bit one note, which is fine for what the character's asked of, but you do get the feeling of like, oh yeah, this guy's a slime ball, and he does get to have a great interaction with both with Lauren Lester's Nightwing, who we'll talk about more in a second, and also maybe a line that I think about more than any other, at least when it comes to these new Batman Adventures episodes, is the great Batman has met his match, no? And Batman simply responding no as he beats the tar out of him is a great moment. So yeah, not the most fleshed out villain of the series certainly, but he does a good job playing this kind of slimy, menacing cartel guy.
Yeah, I like that line. I also like where he refers to Nightwing as Batman Light, which is great. What a great backhanded compliment slash insult to Nightwing there. Yeah, he doesn't have a ton to go off of, but he comes across as a villainous man, that's for sure. Yeah, thumbs up for the performance. Great job for Mr. Lopez.
Absolutely. And then we'll mention Tara Strong here next as Batgirl. Not the biggest role for her in this episode, though she and and Batman do get to play off of Nightwing a little bit, which we'll talk about more. But yeah, she's mostly just there for a little bit of exposition, and she does have the scene in the apartment with Dick where there is clear that she is a little bit, a little bit hurt by how he's kind of keeping her at arm's length, and seemingly they've at least made up a little bit by the end as she comes to rescue him in the water. But yeah, not a ton for her, or not as much for her to do this week, but fun to see that, and fun to see again these beginning puzzle pieces to form as to where Dick Grayson stands with the rest of the Bat family as we start this new series.
Yeah, she gets to have a couple of quips back at Nightwing, as we mentioned, who's being unnecessarily rude towards her. I kind of feel bad for her in that sequence where she's trying to invite herself along and seemingly rekindle maybe some of the, if not rekindle some of the romance, at least reestablish some sort of relationship with Nightwing, which seems like he's moved on from her. So I feel like Tara does a really strong job here, pun intended, of emoting that sort of wistful disappointment that she has of a longing to kind of wondering what happened, what happened to this relationship that the two of them had that seemingly was so strong, and young love, as I think as an older Barbara Gordon would put it later on. But yeah, it's not a lot that she has to do, but I feel like again the scenes that she has are pretty impactful.
Absolutely. And then we do have Kevin Conroy as Batman, the late Kevin Conroy. I'll mention him here again. Not as much for him to do. We do get, like we said, these very sort of cold interactions that he has with Nightwing and Catwoman, and then a bit of a quip. Another line I think about a lot is that you said that they kind of bring back throughout the episode is the thug who runs by Batman just casually standing against the boxes before pointing Nightwing in his direction and saying he's all yours. Like there is this sort of passive aggression to Batman in this episode, which is kind of a fun element to see. No pun intended. Batman being a bit catty in this one.
Yes, I agree. He's very dry and sarcastic, and in most of his interactions with Nightwing, he can't really let Nightwing know that he's gotten under his skin. Also at the end, although he sort of lets him know when Nightwing returns the favor with passing off Ricky the Hook to him. So yeah, not a ton for him to do, but I think the as you mentioned, the line of the Batman has met his match. No, is a extremely memorable line, and the way that Mr. Conroy delivered it, of course, made it equally memorable there. So yeah, some good stuff.
Absolutely. And then, yes, we'll talk about Adrienne Barbeau, of course, reprising her role from BTOS as Catwoman, aka Selena Kyle. And despite our not loving the look of this Catwoman, I think she does a good job. Again, this version is a little bit colder, but she still has sort of the essence. Like it doesn't feel like her character has changed all that much, other than, like it said, it feels like there's a little bit of extra venom in her when she has these interactions with Batman. But otherwise, it kind of seems like she's doing what we'd expect a Catwoman to be up to, trying to steal stuff, and also maybe using her feminine wiles to get these hero types on their back foot before she makes away with the ill-gotten gains, or at least tries to. So she does a good job. I think her best stuff is one in those sort of flirty moments with Nightwing, and then at the end when she realizes that she's the one that's been had. I think she gets like a real sort of indignant, like that's not how it's supposed to work. I'm supposed to be the one that tricks you. Like she's almost like angry, like that's not fair, when she realizes that she was kind of beaten at her own game. So yeah, I think she does a good job in this one, even if she's playing a more maybe a more sinister version of Catwoman than we saw in the original series.
Yeah, I think she's really great. I think that obviously the flirtatious kind of back and forth and chemistry that she has, while it feels very wrong at times with, the former Robin going after Catwoman versus, Batman being romantically linked to her, they certainly do have chemistry in the way that they go back and forth here. And there is there's a little bit of like, are you trying to seduce me, Mrs. Robinson type of type of back and forth between the two of them, a little graduate Dustin Hoffman bit there, I feel like. But yeah, I think she's really she plays that femme fatale very well. She definitely kind of drips seduction in the way that she delivers some of those lines. And as you mentioned, the frustration that she has at the end, where she's just kind of caught off guard, not realizing that the tables were turned on her without her realizing it, is also really great. So yeah, some really really solid stuff from Miss Barbeau as well.
Absolutely. And then we have our star of this week's episode, Lauren Lester as Nightwing, and we get a little bit more of a taste for how this version separates itself from his Robin, which is really just he's clearly kind of pitched himself down a little bit, and there's a little bit more of like a Clint Eastwood-ish like rasp to his voice that I think is there, as well as sort of deepening the voice a bit. I think you hear that more certainly in this Nightwing. We get a little bit of him out of costume, and he does sound more like his normal Dick Grayson self, but he like his mentor, I guess he's learned to put on a bit of a voice when he's in the costume to intimidate a bit as well. But yeah, that seems to be the edge, is just a little bit deeper and a little bit more of like a rasp to his voice to kind of maybe just indicate that he's a bit older now.
Yeah, it's a hardened Nightwing, I would say. It's certainly, I would say it's on the level of how he talks to Tony Zuko in Robin's Reckoning. It's much more, yeah, he's trying to be more serious and intimidating. And a lot of the lines that Mr. Lester had, as we discussed in BTOS, tended to be more lighthearted and ended up being quips, or to give a little brevity to a particular scene. There's no brevity, there's no him trying, or levity to a scene. There's no trying to lighten the mood here with the lines that Nightwing's given. He's serious, and he's taking care of business and wants to be taken seriously. He's clearly not satisfied with being known as Robin anymore. He's not satisfied living in Batman's shadow. He struck out on his own, and he wants to be taken seriously and play with the big boys here. So yeah, I think the tone change and the way that he delivers the voice comes with, yes, certainly being an older character, but also I think he's just not the light-hearted kid that he used to be when he had the bright colors on, and the red and the green. So yeah, that's all reflected in the change in look of the character, the change in how he treats Batman and Batgirl, and I think also in just how he delivers those lines. So yeah, some really really strong stuff here from Mr. Lester. I think there's some great interactions with multiple characters, as we said here, between Tara Strong and Kevin Conroy and Adrienne Barbeau. Lots of good interactions all the way around here. So good stuff.
Absolutely. And so for that reason, I gave voice acting a pretty strong 8 out of 10 as my final score of the day here.
Yeah, and I was exactly the same. I went with an 8 out of 10 for mine as well. I think we have a really strong cast overall here. There's not really one scene that I could point to. I was like, man, I would really love to give this like a 9 or a 10, but I don't think there's one particular scene in this episode. I think looking forward, maybe in Old Wounds, I know that there's some more heartfelt and dramatic sequences that we have coming. I think between our characters there that I remember that kind of stick out to me. So, but for this episode, still strong, solid, a really good cast here, and some really really great interactions, and certainly performances from the people that were cast here. All right, Liam. Well, that will bring us to our final scores for the day. So totaling everything up here, hey, it's December. It's the last month of the year. It's never too late for a nice little top pick for our collection. It is 36 out of 40, which does, in fact, place this episode in our top pick section going forward here. Gotta love that. A nice little episode there. What about you?
Yeah, and I think we just differed by a point in one or two categories. So I ended up just a little bit lower at 34 out of 40. But as we could talk about rewatchability, since we're back in the proper DCAU this week, it's you gotta watch this one. It's the first Nightwing episode. It also reintroduces Catwoman to the series and kind of sets up her new status quo, as well as we said the kind of ongoing soap opera-esque relationship drama between Dick and Barbara, as well as the sort of fraught relationship between Batman and Nightwing. And like you said, it kind of lays the groundwork for the future Nightwing episodes that we will cover down the line.
And that musical score,
that alone,
that alone, I feel like makes this a 10 out of 10, and a 2 thumbs up for our rewatchability here. So yeah, I can't disagree with you there. All right, Liam, well, that will begin to wrap us up for this week's episode. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'd love your support for the podcast. As we mentioned at the top of the program, the best way to support the podcast is at buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review. Become a one-time supporter or monthly supporter of the podcast. But you know what? We're realists. We realize the economy is in the toilet and has been for forever now, it feels like. Giving us your money is not something that we expect. So if you have the opportunity to support us in one of the free ways, we will gladly accept that as well. You can do so by doing things like following us on social media. If you have a social media presence, at DCAU Review on Instagram and Twitter X. We're also on some of the other platforms as well that kind of fill in the gaps there, but we don't use those as often. But feel free to follow us on those, if you will. We're at DCAU Review on all the apps. So follow us there, retweet our stuff, share our posts on Instagram, like our Instagram posts, share our Instagram posts, whatever. That's a good free way to support the podcast, and gets us out there, and it allows us to share the love with this podcast as we head into our 9th year of podcasting. Phew. Unbelievable. And speaking of growing, we're looking to continue to grow our YouTube channel. I feel like I forget to plug this every single week. So please head over to youtube.com, just search DCAU Review, and start following us there and liking our videos as we post them. Even if you don't consume the podcast there, liking the videos and subscribing to the channel helps us out a lot, because there are a lot of people that listen to podcasts on YouTube that don't know we exist. So they may be interested in hearing our stuff, and the old powerful algorithm needs more likes and subscribers. So please consider liking or subscribing on all social media applications. You can also check out the show notes. We have the link directly to buy us a coffee there. You can also check out the store there. The link is in our show notes as well as our links to our social medias. Liam, we will be continuing next week with the next episode of the new Batman Adventures, but we are excited to announce we are not going to be reviewing the next episode alone. We will be having a returning special guest correspondent to next week's episode.
That's right. We'll be joined by a good friend of the show, Jordan Gibson, DC Comics Batman The Adventures Continue artist, and also plenty of other projects. Can't wait to talk to Jordan about what they are working on currently as well. But excited to just nerd out with Jordan, as we always do when he's able to fit us into his schedule, and discuss a very memorable episode. Feature Batman, Robin, and, as mentioned, that redesigned Scarecrow that we can't wait to talk about. So it's going to be a blast to get to have Jordan on, probably our last guest of the year here. So excited to chat with him about that next week.
Cannot wait. It's going to be a blast whenever we have Jordan on. It is a memorable episode, so can't wait to talk with him. But until then, I'm Cal.
And I'm Liam.
And we will talk to you on the next episode of the DCAU Review.
Adios.